You know what you're listening to?
Is that a trick question?
It's the I Still Love This Game podcast with your host, Matthew Damian.
He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot.
Hi, and welcome to episode 88 of the I Still Love This Game podcast. In today's show, we have an old guest. Well, that came out wrong, didn't it? An old favorite guest. We've had him on the show. We've had him on the show from the old Outside the Hype days.
Outside the Hype days.
Yes. We used to talk about video games, and then we grew up, and now we talk about important things such as the NBA. So, LaMont, welcome back.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? I still love this game. I still love this podcast.
Hey, yeah, that's good, man. That's good. That should be my slogan. But how have you been?
I've been good. Just been chilling, working hard, still doing the YouTube thing. I feel like that's always my answer when people ask how I'm doing. But yep, still doing the YouTube thing, still trying to do some stuff with the NBA. So it's going to be an exciting season for all of us, fans and influencers and all that stuff.
Now, of course, I'm glad you said that because that's a perfect segue into what we wanted to talk about first. The upcoming season, there's no bigger storyline, even though the Warriors are going for a three-peat. And I feel like this is deja vu when you think about it too, because the Lakers were going for a three-peat when LeBron went down to Miami, and that stole all the thunder and the momentum from that. Now, come all these years later, the Warriors are going for a three-peat, and LeBron has essentially stolen all that off-season hype and noise by going to the Lakers. What's your expectations with LeBron going to LA? Obviously, that team is rebuilding again. They had a good youth movement, but now, it's an interesting dynamic there.
Yeah, I'm actually very pleased. I'm a Lakers fan, been a Lakers fan since '04. And what is cool is you have to look at all the steps that came to this. Like, if you go all the way back to when Jerry Buss first became the owner, and he made some bad decisions, especially with the Luol Deng signing. I can't go back to back in terms of what I was upset with in terms of Dwight Howard. Like I remember it was at one point when it was clear Dwight was going to leave, and they didn't try to trade him. They put up these signs within Los Angeles like "Stay Dwight" and all that stuff. So that was a huge fiasco. There was at one point where you could tell the team wasn't what it's going to be. Kobe's on his last legs. They should have traded Pau Gasol at that point to get some value. They didn't do that. I think Pau left in free agency. But with all of that said, all of those mistakes made with not trading people, the one thing that Buss did do well is outside of the Luol Deng signing, he didn't make any bad signings to the point that their cap wasn't restricted. Say what you want about re-signing Kobe Bryant in 2013 after he tore his Achilles. The thing was, they still had enough cap space to sign a second max player if one wanted to come. That definitely wasn't going to happen because Kobe was on his last legs. And then, but what the Lakers were smart was that they basically tanked. They didn't try and do a quick fix. They waited and they stayed patient for 2 to 3 years until LeBron was a free agent. LeBron became a free agent and they signed him, all because of the cap space they actually had. So with all of that said, they have nice young talent between Lonzo Ball. We'll see what he can do. I don't have high expectations. Kuzma, everybody likes him. Brandon Ingram, I'm not as high as him as everybody else. If you can't shoot free throws in your year 3 into the league, that just tells me something about your work ethic. But the point is that they don't have scrubs. And I think whenever you have LeBron into a new team, I think it's going to be a very quality team. I definitely don't think they're contenders. There's no way they're going to beat Golden State. No way they're going to beat the Rockets. I have them within the same range of Portland and I guess New Orleans if they're clicking and playing well. So I see them winning 50 games and possibly being the 3rd seed, because it was funny because Portland was the 3rd seed last year and they won 49 games, I think.
Yeah, it was insane last year. I think there was 2 games in between the 3 seed and the 9 seed. It was unbelievable. And we saw what happened to Portland in the first round. They were completely overmatched by New Orleans, and they were swept.
Which I'm not surprised at all, because I think Portland is overrated. Because if you think about it, who do they have on their team? I mean, Dame is for real. CJ is for real. But outside of that, I mean, the 3rd best player is Nurkic.
Well, they're one-dimensional, and that's why they were exposed so bad, because all they did was high screen and rolls all season to try and get a mismatch with the ball handler. And then they ran into a team where they were like, okay, we'll switch and let's see if you can score on Anthony Davis. And of course they couldn't, and that completely, and they had no counter. They couldn't go into the post, they couldn't get anything, they couldn't get players moving off the ball, and they were dealt with emphatically. I like what you said. I like the fact that you brought up the patience of the Lakers, because everybody expects them to essentially be not the Lakers, the Yankees of basketball.
Yeah.
And to always pick up free agents. And it was been a little bit difficult for them. Obviously, they picked up Shaq in the mid-90s. But beyond Shaq, who have they actually gotten as a free agent? Nobody of substance, with the exception of now LeBron. And people often point to the Kobe contract. And they say, well, that extension really killed their salary cap. It actually didn't. They didn't have anyone on the books at that stage. And people forget about this. There is a salary cap bottom. Of course, you've got a maximum that you can go to, but you need to pay X amount. Otherwise, it's the exact same tax. And you have to pay that to the owners, the rest of the league. And they had to pay the money somewhere. So why not pay it to Kobe, who's still an attraction? The loyalty is still there. He's synonymous with the franchise, and it's a more of a goodwill gesture.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you need that, because look at the Spurs. The Spurs have a good reputation. That's why LaMarcus Aldridge probably went there too. Or a big reason why he went there was the prestige of that franchise. I'm not sure if a lot of players would want to go there now after the whole Kawhi Leonard thing, and we'll get to that in a minute. But you brought up some real good points there. I wouldn't go as high as 3 with the Lakers. I think their absolute highest, me being as generous as I possibly can, is them going at number 4. I think Oklahoma's going to be better, and I think the top 3 teams in whatever order will be the Warriors, the Rockets, and the Thunder. And then after that, the Lakers could be as high as 4, or they can miss the playoffs. Now, you said one thing that I want to ask you about, and you mentioned supporting cast, they're not scrubs. Do you think that this is a better supporting cast than what he had in Cleveland last year?
Oh, 100%.
How?
Yeah. How? Because who did he have in Cleveland outside of Kevin Love? The third name that comes to mind is a tie between, I guess it technically should be J.R. Smith, but on the Cavaliers, they had a bunch of one-dimensional players. So J.R. Smith is allegedly supposed to be a knockdown shooter. I guess when you play,
he's a good defender too. But yeah, I get what you're saying. He's limited.
Yeah, and then you have guys like Kyle Korver and George Hill, like just pretty much a bunch of guys. Tristan Thompson had talent. He showed me something in I guess the 2016 finals when they knocked off the Warriors that year. But he hasn't been the same player ever since he got that max deal. Kevin Love is really good. I'm a big fan of his game. And Kevin Love is definitely better than every single player on the Lakers outside of James, but he's still only one man. I think you have more small pieces with the Lakers right now than what you had in Cleveland. Like, Cleveland might honestly be now. I mean, they still have Love, so I can't say the worst team in the league, but like...
Oh, wow.
I mean, no. Like, I'm not saying that, but I don't see them winning more than 35 games next year.
I've got him in the playoffs with Love. But that's because that's a reflection of how weak the East is in the bottom half of this playoff seedings. If they're in the West, there's no chance.
Yeah, so wait. Who was the 8th seed last year in the East?
I believe it was Washington. Yes, it was Washington. It was Washington, but they underachieved big time.
That's true. Yeah, season. So we have teams like that. Like, Washington's better than Cleveland. So we'll see what happens.
That's fair enough. I'll give you that. But in terms of the talent breakdowns for the rosters, okay, so you got Brandon. You mentioned Brandon Ingram. Sounds like I'm a lot higher on him than what you are.
Yes,
Lonzo Ball, I haven't seen anything from him apart from hype. He's a good defender, very good defender around the rim for his position, but let's be completely honest. He's a below mediocre player at his position right now. He could develop into something, but I haven't seen anything to indicate that he's got that kind of talent.
And the Lakers know that too. The Lakers.
Of course they know. That's what. If they felt that he was something special, do you really think they would have brought in Rondo?
Yeah, exactly. It's that simple.
Who else have they got? They got Kuzma. He's an interesting player. I like him as more of a 6-man. I know they started him as center hysterically in the preseason, but it's preseason. I mean, no one's really watching that. Someone sent me the link to it. I was like, well, okay. But it's preseason, so let's not read too much into that. But I'll be interested to see what he could be an all-star. There's no doubt about that. He has that kind of talent, but we've seen lots of scorers in the NBA that have just been comfortable with just being a scorer. Now, whether he realizes his potential at an early age and starts working on the other things, the mental side of the game, the preparation, the defensive intensity, will determine how well he goes. But I'm high on him. I think he will benefit the most playing alongside LeBron. But the problem is, once you get away from Kuzma and Ingram, who do they have as consistent scorers?
They don't. They have a bunch of guys like Lance Stevenson, Josh Hart, who was, I believe, a second-year player. He was
JaVale McGee.
Yeah. JaVale McGee, who I actually like that signing, to be honest.
That's not bad, but he's not going to carry them.
Yeah, of course. In terms of scores, in terms of true scorers, they have no one. And Brandon Ingram is not a true scorer. Kyle Kuzma, I mean,
he could develop himself.
Score. I mean, he is the only player I really like on this team outside of James. Rondo, I'm a fan of Rondo, but I've never seen I've never seen James play with people that can't shoot outside of Wade. And Wade wasn't like Rondo. He wasn't liability. Wade was wide open, he'll take it. I've seen Rondo miss wide open.
Right. Or he just won't even shoot it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get what you're saying there, but keeping in mind the comparison between the Cavs last year to the Lakers, I can't buy that, because I think it's one of those things we'll probably just have to agree to disagree on, and we'll let it play out.
So wait. Do you think the Cavs team last year was a good team?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, so you think this Lakers team is pretty much just as bad as last year's Cavs team? Oh man.
Essentially, yeah. I think it would be more of a discussion if you took Kevin Love away and then you just started breaking down the parts.
Okay. Yeah.
In terms of potential, now if we're going to talk about potential with some of these players, and the Lakers team blows them out of the water just by default, because you've got Kuzma, you've got Ingram, and to a lesser extent Lonzo Ball. Like who's got potential on the Cavs team last year to develop?
Yeah, they're all older players. Yeah. Okay. So wow, that's not looking good for my Lakers. So at least we are both on the same page of how bad Cleveland was last year, especially when you remove Kevin Love. But I just believe in the power of LeBron James.
Oh wow, that sounds religious right there, man.
He's on the Lakers, man. So I mean, I just think that even because the only reason why I'm saying they win 50 games is because, well, one, they won 35 last year somehow. I mean, I was surprised that they actually won that many last year, and two, James is good for probably 10 to 15 games. So why not? Let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. They're a lot more interesting with him than without him. Yeah. I'll give you that. I said in one of the previous episodes that I wish that Hard Knocks exist for the Lakers. I would love to see this training camp and how everything's going to play out.
Personalities, it's just, I don't know what's going to happen.
Now, you mentioned that you're a Lakers fan. I've known you for a long time. Some of the audience may not know this, but you're a huge Kobe fan. You probably still are.
Yes.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about essentially a Laker fan base civil war. You'd appreciate the hyperbole with that, but it's almost like that. It feels like you're on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Pick your allegiance, right? Now, what do you think? What do you make of some? I'm not saying all, but some Kobe fans actually hoping for the Lakers to be a disaster this season, so Kobe looks better.
I understand it. In fact, my cousin, he was a huge Kobe fan. And as much as he loves Kobe, he despises LeBron James for
I like this reasons. Man. Can I get him on the show?
Yeah, no, he actually would be great. But, so then, he despises LeBron James. He said that he will never, he said he's only rooted for James once in his life, and that was when he was on Team USA.
Well, it's good to see he's a Patriot.
So then I'm like, so wait, if James stays on the Lakers for 4 to 5 years, are you never going to root for the Lakers once? He was like, yeah, I guess so. If it comes to it, I'll be gone for 5 years. So you have people like that are on the extreme end, and then I guess he just feels that way because he.
Do you believe him?
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100% he will not root for the Lakers while James is on that team. So I guess they just feel that way because there's always been this type of, war between Kobe fans and James fans. But all of this is so stupid and construed on social media between a bunch of old school players and all, no, well, actually, between a bunch of old school fans and new school fans. Because if you want to look at it, Kobe and James kind of played in separate eras. Like Kobe,
their primes were in separate eras. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe was drafted in '96. James was drafted in 2003. There's 7 years apart. When Kobe won his first few rings, James wasn't even in the NBA yet. When Kobe won in 2009 and 2010, James was still on those bad Cavs teams. I think they were bad. I don't know what your viewpoint is on those 2009 and 2010 teams. Maybe bad is a strong word, but I definitely...
We'll get to that in a minute, because that's an interesting topic. Yeah. I'll finish up your thoughts with the...
Yeah, so I definitely thought those teams were not contenders. So, and then by the time James went on his run, Kobe was at the end of his, and they never matched up in the finals. So when I was a fan, I still am a fan of Kobe, I never viewed Kobe versus James thing, that was never really a thing that was going on. It's kind of started up nowadays with Twitter and all this stuff, going back through history and looking at stats and arguing with random people on Instagram and all this stuff, where it's became this thing and it's taken over. But as a Lakers fan, I'm mad excited that James is here. I wanted him to come. I didn't think he actually would, but he came. And yeah, I mean, I'm tired of losing.
Well, I mean, if you're a Lakers fan and you're not, and your allegiance isn't towards Kobe, and you're more of a Lakers fan, even if your allegiance is to Kobe, why wouldn't you enjoy this?
Because he actually said, if you're a fan of mine, this is Kobe Bryant speaking. If you're a fan of mine, then you should be on board with James coming.
I heard that. That sounded like an order. That really did. It was like, if you're a fan of mine, you shut up and listen. That was interesting. But look, I'm with you on the fact that some Laker fans they will, some Kobe fans, they'll talk the talk. Yeah. But if LeBron brings in 2 rings, I'm pretty sure then or even 1 ring, or even gets them to the conference finals, I'm pretty sure they're going to be pretty excited.
Yeah.
Because the Lakers have been a dormant franchise for quite some time now, probably the longest in their history.
Yeah, for real. Like, I think that the last 3 seasons were their worst seasons ever.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've made the playoffs. I think the last time they made the playoffs was when Kobe busted his Achilles.
Yeah, 2013. It's been 5 years.
And even in 2013, they went without Kobe. There were no chance against the Spurs. So you got to go back to 2012, when they even won a playoff series.
Yeah, and they were old then too. Yeah, so because in 2012 they weren't contenders then.
No, that's true. Yeah. They had just been swept the year before by Dallas, and nobody's really, because all of a sudden OKC was emerging and things of that nature. I'm with you on that. So I do agree. If you're a Lakers fan, it kind of it's a bit silly, but I do like the fact that the Lakers fans aren't like the Cavs fans, and then they're like welcoming him with total open arms. They're saying you have to deliver. If you're this hyped, if you're this much of a great player, if you're as advertised, then let's see you deliver. Yeah, I do like that. There are standards, and I've said this in a previous podcast as well. The Laker fan base, for the most part, they will. If you insult the franchise. Whether, it doesn't matter who you are, if you're Shaq, or if you're Magic, or if you're Wilt, or if you're Kobe. Remember, Kobe asked for a trade request. Yeah. They started booing him. So they always put the franchise above an individual player. And if LeBron starts those shenanigans again, he's gonna be in for a rude shock.
Yep, yeah, and he kind of did that a little bit. Remember when that reporter asked him why he wears number 6 at practice? He was like, "Oh, how do you not know I wear number 6?" I was like, "I don't know you wear 6. Yeah. Like, I thought you wore that when you were on the Heat."
Or Team USA, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a valid question. Why are you wearing number 6?
Well, he made a big deal about changing his number. Yeah. When he was talking about, paying respect to Jordan, and nobody should ever wear number 23, which for some reason when he went back to Cleveland.
No, that's not why he didn't wear 23 in Miami.
Yeah, I know, because they've retired his number, but he was on the Cavs. There was a game between the Cavs and the Heat. This is before he went down to South Beach.
Okay.
And he announced post-game that he was going to change his jersey number for the next season. Now, we didn't know he was going to go to Miami, which it all makes sense that he's changing it because they had already retired Jordan's number.
Okay.
That cracks me up too. People think I'm like, oh, what a great thing. That's the dumbest thing. Why would one individual franchise that he never played a game for retire his number?
You're wild. I think every single team should do that.
Why? Okay.
You should not be allowed to wear number 23 if you play basketball. Who are you?
Right, hold on a second. But why do we have to stop with Jordan there? Why not Wilt with number 13? Why not Bill Russell for number 6?
Because they're not Jordan. There's only
but they built this
Jordan,
game. What about Bird and Magic? Without Bird and Magic, Jordan himself has said without those guys there would be no Michael Jordan.
Of course, that's 100% true. There would be no Michael Jordan, but they're not Michael Jordan. Just saying that name gives my argument, makes it valid. Space Jam, conglomerate, worldwide, MJ.
Yeah, you got a point there. You got a point there. If there is more.
He's Michael Jordan for a reason. I remember this one time. I went on a date like last month. This girl knows nothing. Wait,
hold on a second. I love how you I remember this one time. It was a month ago.
Oh, yeah. I've been out here grinding at 2K, trying to get better. No girls. But last month or something, this girl knew nothing about sports. I don't know how sports came out. No, wait, I think she was a Pats fan. So anyway, I asked her just one question. Like, she knew nothing about basketball. And I was like, who is the best basketball player ever? She was like, Michael Jordan.
Did she Google it?
No, she was right there. So
is she a listener to my show?
Yeah, probably.
Have I indoctrinated your your dates? That would make my day, yes. By the way, if I found that out.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. But
now, I think you've got a point, though. If you're going to retire one number league-wide, it should be Jordan's. I'm with you on that. But for one individual franchise to do that, Washington didn't even retire his number, and he played there for 2 years.
That's because he had beef with the owner and all that stuff.
But he's dead now. Abe Poland's dead.
Well, I think since when? When did he pass away?
Oh, he passed away in like 2000. I don't know. Let's look it up. Keep talking. I'll look it up.
Yeah, so I didn't know that Abe Poland passed away. I should know this. I'm a Wizards fan. That's my number 2 team. I guess that shows how much I'm good of a number 2 team. Yeah.
2009, November 24th.
Okay, that's not too bad. That's only 9 years. But,
only 9 years?
hey, the years fly by when you get older, man. Oh, man, it's flying by. It was already 2018. Jeez, it was just...
No, I just love it how you go from like, well, I remember this story from so long ago. It was a month ago. Yeah. But then 2009, that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, 2009 when the Lakers beat the Madden. It was a tough team, excellent team. That team was one of the best teams ever.
Oh my! All right. Speaking of good teams, right? You brought up a good point, a good topic that never really gets discussed, and that's how good or how bad the 2009 and 2010 Cavs teams were.
Yeah.
Now I get the feeling you think they were a horrendous team.
No, they weren't horrendous because they had Mo Williams, and I think Mo Williams made the All-Star game in 2009.
But you're a Wizards fan. You know how good Antoine Jameson was. Like, he wasn't a great player.
Yeah, he was good on the Wizards when I was in high school. So we're talking about 05, 06. This is like 4 years after that. And he was an older player then because he started out in Golden State. Yeah, I think Antoine Jameson drafted like 97 or something. So he wasn't the same player. So I'm looking at the numbers right now. Played better than I actually thought. Well, no, yeah, because he played, 66 games that year.
Is this Shaq?
No. This is Antoine.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was dropping 20 points per game for the Wizards before they traded him to the Cavaliers. So, yeah, I guess he was a quality player. But I also say that because I'm a huge believer, and I was, when Boston formed their Big Three. Like, I knew that was the real deal. And even when everybody's saying they were older in 2010, I still knew they were the team you had to go through in the Eastern Conference, and whoever LeBron had on his squad, whether it's Mo Williams and very old Shaq, and also Antoine Jameson, that wasn't going to be enough to get past Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and KG. With Perkins and Rondo, and who else he had on that team, Leon Poe, Tony Allen, nah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the 2010 Celtics, because that was no longer really a Big Three. That team was Rondo's at that stage. 2008, totally different story. Yeah, that was a Big Three. Rondo was essentially barely a starter on that team. People should think back to that Game 4. You as a Lakers fan should remember this, when they had that huge lead and the Celtics came clawing back. Rondo wasn't even on the court. It was Eddie House and Sam Cassell that were playing minutes down the stretch when they made that run. So that tells you how important Rondo really was for that ball club in 2008. 2010 was a totally different story. He was dominant, and he really did tear up the Cavs in that second round. But if memory serves me correct, and I probably should look it up, I don't even think they won 50 games that year, did they? The 2010.
I think they're like the 4th seed or something. But like, as you know, as a historian, how many times was Bill Russell Celtics like the 5th seed? I think one time they won as the last seed. Oh,
yeah, that was a 4 seed. They only had 4 teams in the playoffs.
They're the 4th seed, man. Winning championships. All that. When you have a core of veterans and guys that know how to play, seeding doesn't matter. Seeding doesn't matter when you have a real team.
That's true. I'll give you that, but I'm still saying that the Cavs had to be the favourites based off what they had done in the regular season. And they had added veterans themselves. You're talking about veterans, although these guys hadn't played together, you're talking about guys like Antoine Jameson being in the playoffs quite a few times with your Wizards. Never did anything, but was still in the playoffs. I think he was in his mid-30s at that stage. He may have been a little bit younger, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You had Shaq. My God, how many wars had he been in? Obviously not the most dominant ever player at that stage, but still, the year prior, he was the All-Star Game MVP, All-NBA third team. So you had some talent around there. The problem is...
Wait, Shaq made All-NBA the
third
year
team.
before when he was
All-NBA third team.
Yeah.
Third team. Not Dwight Howard, and I think it might have been Yao Ming, or it could have been somebody else who was the second team. But yeah, Shaq was All-NBA third team, in 2009. I know you're looking that up right now. I'm completely confident about it.
I believe you.
That's fine. No, but I encourage you to. I would like to hear the sorry, Matt, at the end of it. No, I'm just kidding. No, but the problem is, and you alluded to this earlier when we were talking about LeBron being on the Lakers, is those guys did not fit LeBron's style of play.
Yeah.
LeBron needs, like we've seen him do this with Kevin Love and Chris Bosh, he needs shooting from every position. Now, the problem now, and we'll get back to the Cavs in a second, the problem the Lakers really have is you've got guys at positions where you should be a shooter, or the ability to make an open shot, like such as a Rondo at point guard, or Alonzo Ball at point guard. They don't have the consistent shooting. So if he struggles in the East with George Hill or Rodney Hood or J.R. Smith catching and shooting, how's he going to go in the West with Rajon Rondo catching and shooting?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's why I'm not excited at all to think that the Lakers are actually going to win something this year. I think the only way they're going to win, because if you look, I think a lot of these guys only have 1-year deals. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. I know McGee has to have a 1-year deal.
I'm glad you brought that up. We'll get to that in a second. So we're sort of jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
This is the way me and Lamont always talk. I'm glad the audience is coming for the roller coaster here. To answer your question, though, do I think the 2009 and the 2000 Cavs teams were bad? I think they were poorly structured because they relied too much on one player. But that being said, LeBron didn't really do himself any favors either by molding his game the way that he probably needed to make his teammates better. He didn't throw the ball into Shaq, even at that age, a couple of times a quarter, to get him in a dominant position and effective. He didn't get the ball to Antoine Jameson where he was effective, which was mid-range and face-up. You would remember this.
Yeah.
The only player he really improved was Mo Williams, who, once again, catch-and-shoot guy.
Yeah.
Now, I'll sum it up by saying that I don't think that either of those Cavs teams, the 2009 team or the 2010 team, would have made the playoffs without LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty good indication of how I felt about that team. That being said, they grossly underachieved when they got knocked out by the Celtics, because that series could have been a lot quicker than what it actually was. That was even because you think back, they had lost, I think it was game 2 or game 1. I know there was a split. And then the Cavs rebounded, and they won Game 3. It was one of LeBron's better playoff games. It was close to a triple-double, close to 40 points. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was impressive. And I thought the Cavs were all right. They've corrected themselves. And that's the type of victory that teams usually use to springboard to a championship, even though it's only in the second round. They're like, okay, this is the confidence level that they're playing with. Uh-huh. And of course, we had deja vu of the series the year before against Orlando, where Orlando got the split. Orlando really probably should have won the first 2 games if it wasn't for LeBron's incredible shot.
Yeah.
But the Cavs could not win in Orlando, and then all of a sudden we're in a similar situation where there's a split, and Boston's probably going to run off 3 straight games just like the Magic did. No, absolutely not. The Cavs won game 3, sorry. But then we saw some interesting play by LeBron where I wouldn't say he checked out, but he couldn't figure it out. And this is another thing that irritates me about the LeBron discussion. And people think I'm too harsh on him or too critical of him. But the 2011 series and the 2010 series against the Celtics, where they said he quit, or he checked out mentally, I don't think he checked out. He just couldn't figure it out.
And then wait, what are you talking about in Game 5 or Game 6 in the 2010 series? Because
Game 5 is what there was a period in the second half of Game 5 where he just didn't want to even touch the ball.
Yeah, he has a habit of doing that. He still does that nowadays sometimes.
But he looked like he was trying to figure out what the Celtics defense was doing to him, and he just couldn't work it out. Game 6 he put up numbers, but they were almost like numbers in the 2014 finals where they weren't competitive.
Okay.
But he did show up. I hated the whole quitting aspect. I don't think even he would do that. I think at times he's done some pretty egregious things in terms of leaking stories to defend himself. I mean, going up to a podium with a bloody hand wrap to say that he broke his hand. I mean, like, come on, like, just accept the loss. Accept they're a better team. And, like, as much as it's just don't make the excuses. Like, please, you know, you're that good enough. Figure it out. You didn't see Kobe in 2008 come up there and say, oh, you know, I had a bad shoulder the whole game. No one would have bought it. So. I'm getting a little bit off topic with that, but the point that I wanted to make was I don't think he checked out, though, in 2010 or 2011. I just think he couldn't figure it out. And eventually, once he did figure it out, we're like, whoa, you know, this guy could be the greatest player we've ever seen. And when we started to see some signs of what he was capable of, especially we talked off air about his run in 2012, some of the big playoff performances he had on the road. But... So the 2009, 2010 teams, then they weren't loaded with talent, but the talent was purely on LeBron. LeBron was and LeBron didn't micromanage it. He did micromanage every player's role to the point where he was shut down. That team stalled.
Which year was this?
2009, 2010, both years. I know we put up huge numbers against the Magic. I mean, some insane numbers. And a lot of players didn't show up, but that was once again, well, we've seen him put up huge numbers, but his team not even be competitive.
LeBron, I'm that LeBron fanboy. But
I know I'm not accusing you of that. And that's I wanted to clarify that though, because you asked me whether I thought those Cavs teams in 2009 and 2010 were bad.
That's true.
I agree that they weren't good. They wouldn't have made the playoffs. That being said, they were massive favorites to beat both the Magic and the Celtics at that stage of their... Now, I've got a question for you. You are unashamedly a Kobe fan, right? What do you think would have happened in either 2010 or 2009 had the Cavs advanced to play the Lakers?
Oh, it's not even close. The Lakers would have won for so many reasons. The first reason, they had the better team. Between Pau Gasol, Odom, and Bynum, and Bynum was playing good on one of those years. I think Bynum played well in 2010. So just right there, the Lakers bench wasn't deep, but it was, you know, a solid bench. They had Formar, Luke Walton, Derek Fisher was still there, Shannon Brown. So they had quality players. You know how I feel about that Cavs team. Plus, Kobe is always looking for ways to motivate himself. And he knows in terms of the rumblings of what people were saying. In fact, Jerry West said in 2009 that LeBron was a better player than him. So if they matched up in 2009 and definitely in 2010, Kobe would want to show those people, hey, you know, I'm still the man. I'm the alpha dog. He 100% would have won those series. Like, it wouldn't even have been close. You know, I don't know. I'm talking about like in 5.
Okay, so honestly, I know you've got Kobe quite high in your top 10.
Oh, yeah.
I believe he's number 3. Or is he number 2? Okay.
He is. No, yeah, he's not. He's not 2. In fact,
you're right.
You will like my new top 5 now.
We'll get to that in a minute, but the question I was going to ask you, how different of his legacy would we view it had he had eviscerated LeBron in the finals as opposed to eviscerating Dwight Howard and the Orlando Magic?
If Kobe Bryant beat the 2009 Cavs, he would be probably considered people would still say whatever they have to say, but he would hands down be in everybody's top 10 because you still have people that bring up all this stuff So because it's hard because of the way his career ended, he never got that 6th ring. So he never beat Dallas in 2011. How that ended and how it ended in 2012. Then he tore his Achilles in 2013. Because the whole thing is this: if he beat James in 2009, and people think James is this good after saying now, well, if Kobe beat him, how good does that make Kobe? So just based off of that logic, you have to propel him, and nobody could ever talk that much smack. But the funny thing about a lot of what we call Kobe haters now, even some of the strongest Kobe haters, they still have him in top 10. It's just they're just trying to bring him down and not have him as high as I have him, which is in the top 5. But in my opinion,
I think you could make a real good argument had he had just completely tore him up, similar to what Jordan did to Drexler, for example. Yeah. Had he had done that, my God, if he'd done that in back-to-back years, but if he just did it once, and then took out the Celtics the next year, for example, then I think I know he would be in my top 5. Russell will probably get pushed out.
But then people would say, "Oh, that wasn't the same James," because all the excuse that they say for James back then, "Oh, yeah, no post game in 2011 and blah blah."
Whose fault's that?
Oh, of course.
Whose fault's that?
Of course. But people, because a lot of James fans now, because to us, we've been watching the game for a long time. I remember watching LeBron get drafted. So a lot of people that are his fans, especially his young fans, even the guys that are 14, they don't remember 2011. Guys that are 14, 15 now, they were 7, 8 years old when he lost to Dallas. So they didn't remember the series. And all they know of is, oh yeah, LeBron has 2 rings. So
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. He hadn't developed yet at that point, but he was still honestly, he was a top 2 player in the league.
Hey, I'm
right there with Kobe.
I'm just saying what they're saying or what they.
Oh well, okay. If we're going to be arguing about what their excuses was, they'll come up with any excuse. They really will. I'll give them points for the mental gymnastics that they're able to perform on a nightly basis. It's pretty good, but none of it makes sense, and that would be up there with it not making sense because it's still the same guy. That's like saying, well, Clyde Drexler wasn't the same guy that Jordan, destroyed. He wasn't the same guy in '95 when he won. Well, he is actually probably worse. You can make an argument LeBron was better in 2009 or 2010 than what he was last season because he actually played defense.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go as far as to say he was the best we've seen. It was probably his Miami days, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But that excuse would hold no water whatsoever. If people were to use it, but how badly would that look for LeBron's record? Because then we're talking, if he had the opportunity, just like Jordan had the opportunity to take out Magic and Drexler and Barkley and Ewing and Malone and Stockton. I mean, I could run the list forever, right? The only guy he really didn't take out was Bird.
Yeah.
But the injuries really prevented that from happening.
Yeah.
But the point that I'm making is, would we push LeBron further down then and elevate Kobe? That's the great missed opportunity that we got from a historical standpoint. What I really wanted to see was LeBron versus Wade in the conference semifinals or something like that. That would have been a spectacular show.
Yeah, because Wade is definitely a real deal, but we never have Wade in the conversation of top 10, if not, I don't know, Wade's top 20, and I'm a big fan of Wade's, but if you...
I got him top 30.
Oh, yeah, he's top 30.
3 rings, should have been a regular season MVP, probably in 2009.
No.
No?
Wait. When did Kobe win? Oh, 2008. Okay, that's fine.
No, 2009, Wade led the league in scoring, and he carried Michael Beasley and young Mario Chalmers to the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, but James was on that. Yeah, James. But the Cavs won 60-something games that year, I think, when they won in 2009.
Yeah, I know who I would have voted for. I wasn't upset with LeBron winning that, but I would have voted for Wade on that, because if you want to talk about supporting cast, which we just did for a little bit, I would take LeBron's supporting cast night and day over
whoever was in Miami.
So let's get back to the regular season. We've talked in depth with the Lakers and what to expect there, but we did mention a team that we both agreed upon that would be ahead of them, and that is the Rockets. Now, of course, they added Carmelo, they lost Ariza. Don't be surprised if that buyout happens with Phoenix, with Ariza, and he finds a way back to Houston. Don't be surprised. I'm not predicting that will happen.
I mean, yeah.
But don't be surprised if that happens. But let's assume that doesn't happen. Are they a better team now, on paper, than what they were last year?
No.
Why is that?
Well, one, Chris Paul's a year older. and they lost Trevor Ariza and Luke Mabamute. So they don't have any wing swing defenders. Because what I
they still got Tucker. They still got PJ Tucker.
Oh, he's one man. We all know who Golden State has, and I'm not even talking about Cousins. So let's pretend Cousins is not even playing. What I was impressed with Mike D'Antoni is that he was smart. He did what so many teams don't do, at least in terms of the games that I watch. He benched the guys that can't guard. So Ryan Anderson, he's a good player, but he can't defend Steph or KD when they switch and run those pick and rolls. So why have him out there? I don't care if he can shoot threes. You got to do something. So he would, he would actually play PJ Tucker, Mad Time, same with also Trevor Ariza and also Luke Mabamute.
That's a hell of a name to pronounce, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. So you no longer have those guys to at least play quality defense and get up in them. And so now that you can't outscore Golden State, you can't do it. You can't outscore it. So why are you even going to try? You're going to get blown out. It's great. It's madness.
Well, here's the thing. They didn't have a choice. They either re-signed Ariza or they re-signed Clint Capella. They couldn't afford both because of their cap situation. So, of course, you go with Capella because he's younger and he's more effective, especially in those pick-and-roll situations. So Ariza had to go, which is unfortunate. But Ariza isn't the lockdown defender that he once was. He's still a very good defender. My God, he's better than Carmelo Anthony, right? We're talking about him like he's the second coming of Kawhi Leonard or Scottie Pippen. He wasn't locking down Kevin Durant either. And the truth be told, in the series it was PJ Tucker on Durant. It wasn't Trevor Ariza on Durant. So you still got PJ Tucker.
Okay.
Now, in terms of offensive play, you're right. There are very few teams that can go toe-to-toe with, in terms of talent, offensive talent, with Golden State. Houston's one of them. They can go toe-to-toe with them. Plus, they have the ultimate green light because you've got D'Antoni, who, yes, he was smart, and I give him all the credit in the world for adjusting his team's concept of let's just be physical with these guys. Yeah. Let's slow the pace down. Let's control the pace. Because all season long, and this is why they finished with the number one record in the league, was they were just Golden State, in the fifth gear the entire time. Mm-hmm. They were putting up shots at record pace. The thing I'm really interested to see, though, with Melo, we know how badly he struggled last year. We know how badly he played the last couple of years in New York. But Chris Paul is a great point guard.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying a great player, but a great point guard. He knows the role and he understands how to be a point guard. You're a football guy. You would understand this analogy, I hope. He reminds me a lot of Drew Brees.
Okay.
Because he just understands the flow of the game and what he needs to do and how to get people involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he will balance getting the shots. It's one thing to throw the ball to a guy if they're uncomfortable in a spot, but he gets it to them when they're typically comfortable. So I think you'll understand Carmelo. He's played with him in All-Star games. He's played with him in the Olympics. Yep. They've seemed to mesh quite well. I think it will be a very interesting series should they match up with Golden State in the playoffs again. Because I think they were, and I hate to use this term, but incredibly unlucky. That Chris Paul injury was incredible bad luck. Up 3-2, they had them on the ropes. Yeah, Chris Paul doesn't go down, they win that series.
I think so too, but I think that's not. I mean, it's hard to say that because the Rockets did what they had to do to go up 3-2, and I do agree with you. But I think the only reason they went up 3-2 is because Golden State's just lazy. I think Golden State does not play to how good they can be. I think Golden State is.
That's a big call. That's a big call.
No, because
they played at a high standard for the last couple of years.
Do you know who's on that team?
I think I know. Wait, is this a basketball podcast?
I mean, seriously, Golden State, if they really wanted to, if you're talking about last year and everybody's healthy and all that stuff, they should only lose one game in the postseason. I would give you one game to the Rockets if they really needed to perform as well as they needed to, play to the top of their potential in today's game. They have too much firepower. Of course they swept Cleveland. Who's on Cleveland? Of course they swept whoever else. And the Rockets, I don't know how the Rockets pushed.
That was the only sweep, I think, wasn't it?
Probably, but
Steph Curry missed the first round. Yeah.
But my point is that they're so good. They literally should sweep every single team, except for the Rockets. I'll give the Rockets one game. And if they play against Boston, I think Boston's tough. They have a good coach. I might give Boston 2 games. Maybe. I don't know.
See, I agree with you to an extent. I think certain teams are intimidated by Golden State. I don't think Houston's one of them. I think Houston scared the hell out of them once that series shift. I think it was Game 4. Yeah, it was Game 4 because the home courts were in Houston's favor. So it was in Oracle, and the Warriors were up 2-1, and it looked bad for Houston. They were down, I think, 15, 16 points in the first quarter, or it may have been the second quarter. I can't remember. They went on that massive run. Harden had that huge dunk on Draymond Green, which was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that you saw the toughening up. And once they made that determined change in philosophy of we're just not going to let you punk us like you punk everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then you saw the Warriors take a real big step back, and they started to get a bit intimidated about how we're going to, counter this. They didn't look to have a counter. I know you didn't like this in my book about where I was comparing them to other great teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who would they beat? Who would they not beat?
Mm-hmm.
My biggest piece of evidence that I had for them losing to a lot of those great teams is they didn't have a counter. What happens when they get punched in the face?
Yeah.
What's their counter? We talked about this with Portland. You take away that high pick and roll, what have they got? Now, if you get up and defend them from 50 feet as opposed to 35 feet,
mm-hmm.
what is Golden State's counter? And they didn't appear to really have that. Now, they have made some changes, and they should be aware of it. There should be some coaching philosophy changes too to counter that now. So we'll probably see the best we've seen from Golden State, which is once again because.
Yeah, but which changes did they make this offseason outside, of course, signing Cousins? But I don't think you were pointing to that. Like, who are some of the other?
It's more of a coaching philosophy change. You'll probably see a lot more Kevin Durant bring the ball up.
Yeah.
In situations like that, and then you can have on one side of the court. This is just how I would do it. I can't predict what they're going to do, but this is just an example. But this is how I would run it. So Kevin Durant brings the ball up as opposed to Draymond Green, because Kevin Durant you have to guard from 30, 35 feet.
Yeah. You
don't have to do that with Draymond Green. Hell, a lot of the times you can get away with being a foot inside the 3-point line with him because he's not a consistent shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And then on both sides, you've got either Klay Thompson or Steph Curry working off the ball. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Set a screen off the ball for him, and then you force a mismatch off the ball. Now, what will happen is the mismatch off the ball will create a situation where they're now having to help off the ball, but you're forgetting who's actually got the ball in their hands, and that's Kevin Durant.
Mm. So
how are you meant to help the defense? I don't care if it's Kawhi Leonard. I don't care if it's Scottie Pippen in his prime. Whoever they're guarding, or Anthony Davis, whoever's guarding Kevin Durant is at a mismatch because he's such a good offensive player.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one thing that we never really saw, and it's such a dangerous situation. Like, how do you actually defend that?
Yeah, I don't know.
What would you do if you're playing 2K and someone's doing that?
Oh, I would play tough.
Rage quit?
Get up on them. I would press. If somebody's killing me in 2K, the only thing you could do is play tighter defense.
Now that's a good point, because you brought up Boston, right? No, I'm serious. You brought up Boston. This is why I think Boston would be an excellent chance of beating Golden State this year, because they have.
Wait! Excellent chance.
Absolutely, that'd be an excellent chance. You look at their roster.
Yeah, the roster.
You look at what they did last year without Kyrie Irving and without Gordon Hayward in the playoffs. Now all of a sudden you have Jaylen Brown, a year of experience with him being really the focal point on offense. Tatum, the second option on offense.
Uh-huh.
You have Horford. What can you, when you look at those 5 players, what comes to your mind when you see that? The versatility.
Exactly.
And not just that, when you look at Brad Stevens, he made Terry Rozier look like an All-NBA first-team player in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. He was chewing up and spitting out players that, for some reason people think Ben Simmons is a top 10 player in the league. Well, look at what Terry Rozier did to him in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And you have that kind of defensive depth. Where I haven't talked about Marcus Smart. I haven't talked about Morris.
Wait. Is Marcus Smart and Morris still on the team?
Yes.
Because I know Smart had contract issues. I don't know.
No, he re-signed. Yeah, he re-signed.
Oh, he did? For how much?
Yeah. It was a reduced rate of what he was originally asked. So the point that I'm trying to make is you can press the hell out of this Warriors team, because one, I don't see them as a great ball handling team in the first place. They're not athletic. They're a very smart team. They're a precision offense. But outside of Kevin Durant, who's a really athletic guy on their team? I mean, you've got guys that you can almost match athletically with him, at least with Brown, Tatum, and you could even throw Gordon Hayward on him for limited times. It's not a huge mismatch if he has to guard him. I mean, he had to guard him when he was in Utah. He didn't do a very good job of it, but not a whole lot of people do. So I think they're a great chance, and the biggest reason is probably coaching. Brad Stevens knows what he's doing, and you look at how far they got last year without
Kyrie. Yeah, which is why I'm hoping that's what the finals is going to be, and it definitely should be that if everybody stays healthy. But at the end of the day, I would still pick Golden State, even assuming Cousins is not even on the basketball court, because even though Boston and pretty much everybody on that team can switch with them, which is what you have to do to have a chance to slow them down, I still think that Golden State is no joke on defense, even though Curry is definitely a liability. But he at the end is one guy, so Kyrie will get his. But I mean, you have Tatum and Hayward switching on Kevin Durant. What? Kevin Durant's still not going to get his 25. Clay's still not going to get open on those threes when he's running around like crazy. So
well, the thing about a press too is you force them to really use up the clock.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the press, it's one thing beating a press or going up against a press when Chris Paul's guarding you. Chris Paul's he's not a defender that, say, Terry Rozier is right now because of his age. He's slowed down a little bit. And, you look at who else have they got? James Harden. James Harden's definitely not a defender. When you look at the defensive ball, and of course I'm comparing them to the Rockets because that's their main competition for Golden State this year. So all of a sudden you have Durant bring the ball up, but he's going to have guys like Marcus Smart on him, pressuring him. He's going to have guys like Brown, Tatum, Rozier, whoever it is. They'll have schemes to double the ball handle, to get it out of his hands 60 feet away as opposed to 35 feet away. And also, it's a lot different to try to dominate the court with the ball as opposed to being at the top of the key, foul line, obviously 3-point line, top of the key, as opposed to being on the wings or the baseline. It's a lot easier to trap the ball in those situations. It's harder to get the ball out of someone's hands in those circumstances.
Yeah, that is true. So I will say this. If Boston does beat Golden State, man, that gives everything you said in your book so much more credibility and validity if that happens in terms of your thoughts towards the Golden State.
Validity, man. Whoa.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were saying some tough. You were saying they're going to get swept by everybody, man.
Oh, no, not everybody. Just 50% of the time.
You said swept.
Some of them, some teams, yeah, they get swept. I said the 96 Bulls would sweep. But hey, look, you saw how effective the Rockets were last year by playing incredible physical defense on the perimeter. Mm. Now, that's with guys like James Harden and Trevor Ariza and Chris Paul and Eric Gordon doing this. Oh, and PJ Tucker too, of course. Now, what would happen if just to imagine how effective the 96 Bulls with Ron Harper, with Scottie Pippen, with Dennis Rodman, with Jordan, all these defenders, imagine what they would have done to them.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I like the 96 Bulls better, but I can't say a sweep. I just can't.
I think you can. Come on, man.
They got too much firepower. But
how effective is a fire if it's got a fire extinguisher and it's at the base of it?
Because I value talent in basketball. I value the team usually that has the most talent wins, and Golden State has almost an unprecedented level of talent when it comes on the offensive end. So with that said, if you're talking about the all-time great teams, yeah, I still think the 96 Bulls, but because they're so talented, I mean, shoot, they'll still get a game or two or three or something. I don't know.
For what it's worth, I did retract that a little bit. I did say that the 2000 this past Warriors team that did have to go through some tribulations in the playoffs, they did show me a little bit of poise, or a lot of poise, especially being down 3-2 and winning Game 7 on the road. I think that if the 2018 Warriors were to play the 96 Bulls, it would be a 6-game series.
Okay.
But the 2017 Warriors, we didn't see them challenged. Yeah. And the one time we saw them challenged, Kawhi Leonard had to get injured by one of the dirtiest plays. And man, I've seen some dirty plays.
Yeah.
But one of the dirtiest plays I've ever seen in a sporting environment.
Yeah.
And before that, they were down by 15, 16 points. And maybe you're right. Maybe the Warriors, they're so good that they get bored. I would hope that's not the case.
No, I think that's 100% the case. I think it is. There's no reason in today's game.
In the playoffs, though?
Yeah, like, seriously, who's going to beat them? Just think about it.
The Rockets were up 3-2 on them.
Because they were lazy.
Oh. Okay, let me ask you this. The Rockets were up 3-2. Do you think they get out of that series with a healthy Chris Paul?
Yes, I do, but that's only because the Warriors were being stupid and lazy in the first place. I think if the Warriors went in it thinking, okay, we could lose any game we play, even though...
Oh, so they play with that intensity and desperation to start the series.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're like, oh, yeah, let's go. I think they literally do that.
I could buy that to an extent, because you saw game one of that series,
exactly.
And the Warriors came in with intensity and purpose, and maybe that was a false sense of security for them. Because then, of course, they let the foot off the accelerator in Game 4 when they probably should have put the sword to them and go up 3-1.
Mm-hmm. Because they've had
it's an interesting theory. And look, I'll give you credit for that, because that's something I never really acknowledged, whether the Warriors have actually reached their potential, because we've seen them play so well.
I don't think the Warriors can reach their like potential if you take what I think about their psychological makeup as a team. I think they're so good that human nature kicks in. They're like, I don't have to give 100% effort to get the same result that I want.
Do you rate Steve Kerr as coach?
I think he's a good coach, because when it comes to coaching, you also have to manage personalities well. And that, I would say, is a big aspect, even though when I read the Kobe Bryant book written by Roland Lazenby, Phil Jackson seemed to do a terrible job at that when he was on the Lakers. And they still won 3 championships. So, I don't know, maybe you just have so much talent, they still win no matter what. So, with that said, I mean, I have no reason to discredit Steve Kerr. They have performed excellent since he's been there. They've been to the finals every single year, and they were a Draymond Green suspension away from winning 4 straight. So, there's no reason to think he's not a good coach. Now, with that said, I'm sure you could put probably every other coach that's coaching right now in the NBA, and you'll probably have the same exact result. But
well, that's my point. You look at what Mike Brown did when Steve Kerr was out with the back injury, or the back problems, or the health problems that he had. And Mike Brown was actually undefeated in the playoffs. And then you look at what Luke Walton did with this team that really got him the Lakers job. Mm-hmm. And they had a better record than what Steve Kerr had. The thing that Steve Kerr is good at managing personalities, with the exception of Draymond Green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for some reason he can't get to Rudy.
Yeah.
Because Draymond Green still makes idiotic situations that don't need to be... They're completely unnecessary, right? Mm-hmm. But the in-game adjustments concern me when it comes to Steve Kerr. This is why I don't really think he's that good of a coach. I think he was a genius to bench Iguodala and to start Draymond Green. I think that was a stroke of genius, because that really pushed them over the top. That turned them into contenders. They went from losing in the first round to the Clippers to winning 60-something games. I think he was 67, and winning the championship.
Okay.
But the thing that concerns me about Steve Kerr is when a situation will happen within a game, he's very reluctant to make that change. And the biggest example I can give you was the 2015 finals up against the Cavs, and they weren't even guarding Andrew Bogut, the Cavs, in when they had the ball. So there'd be there'd be screening for Curry or Thompson or whoever, mm-hmm. and both Cavs players would just double the ball handle. So the change that happened in that series was, of course, once he finally did that change, was to bring Iguodala in to start, and mm-hmm. the Warriors won 3 straight games.
Well, he finally did it in Game 4?
What was that, sorry?
Well, he actually did make that change. He made it in Game 4, right?
Yeah, but it took him 4 games into the series before he made that change. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a long time in a series. Usually that will put you in a situation where you can't even recover.
Yeah.
That's a long time to make that change. And I remember that's when I first started the I Still Love This Game brand. And at that point, it wasn't its individual podcast. And I was just making comments on Instagram about it. You mentioned that before. Making comments on Instagram that they should bring David Lee back into the lineup, because at least you have to guard him.
Exactly.
Because he can shoot.
That's true. Yeah.
I had no idea that you could actually run with that lineup at depth as long as they did for 3 straight games, and it was effective. It worked for them. Mm-hmm. But I don't rate Steve Kerr, and maybe the right coach would be able to maximize the potential of this team. I don't think it would maximize with Kerr. But the scary thing is you don't even need to maximize it.
Yeah.
That's how good this team is. I'll give them that. But I don't think they're unbeatable. No chance. There's any team that was down 3-2, even if it's psychologically on their standpoint, they're vulnerable psychologically.
That's fair. That's very fair. Well, I'll ask you this. How good, let's say Cousins comes back, and I don't think he'll be as good as he was, especially not this season, but let's say he's still playing at a low all-star level, so like a top 20, top 25 player. How good do you think the team will, and it all meshes well? That's a lot of ifs, but how good do you think this team will? That
might be the worst situation. If he actually, the worst possible scenario. That might be their worst nightmare.
But he's fine to play as a catch and shoot guy, and when they need a bucket for him to go down low, he's fine to post up.
Do you think he'd be okay with that?
I don't know.
Has he ever shown that he's been okay to do anything apart from what he wants to do on the court?
No, but he did choose to sign with them for $5 million like 2 days into free agency. So
yeah, that's true. That is true. At some point, he's got to be aware of what he's getting himself into.
Yeah.
It's not like he got traded there, but I just look at it. He's been on some talented teams. Well, one talented team. Let's be honest. That Sacramento team wasn't that talented. Although they had Rondo for a year and they looked like they should be able to develop into something. He's never made the playoffs. And there's just something about him. I started calling him delusional Cousins when I was watching him last year. Because, I know it sounds ridiculous, but when I was watching some games for the Pelicans last year, he would actually, off inbounds passes, not him getting the board and pushing it, which is fine. I get that because you've got an advantage. You've got to push. You've got to run with it. But off made baskets, he would go to the baseline, not to inbound it, but to receive the ball to bring it up the court. This was a team that had Drew Holiday and Rajon Rondo on this. I'm like, what are you doing, man? And then he won't go into the post as much as he should. He's huge. He should be a post player. He was, dribbling and trying to shoot threes, and that's why I started calling him delusional Cousins, because he was delusional in his skill set. He has such an advantage.
Well, that's probably something you have to get onto the coach. I got to manage personalities, but there's no reason Cousins should be bringing the ball up.
Yeah.
And you know how they always want these bigs to shoot threes and to space the floor, and the less post-up opportunities you do during the game. And Cousins, he has a good shot for somebody his size. So
okay, but what would you prefer him doing? Would you prefer him in the post where he can create shots for your shooters, or have a huge advantage and get to the foul line and control the tempo, and be where he's effective in the post when he goes down there?
Definitely. I mean, to be honest, I would have him be more of a post-up player, but I would also peel him out too to give the defense different looks, especially.
Oh, absolutely, but that shouldn't be the number one option.
Yeah,
and that's where I started, scratching my head. Like, does he not know what his advantages are, what his skill set actually is? It'd be like if Dennis Rodman. Oh, okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration. I was going to say Dennis Rodman starting shooting threes, because you don't need that. That's not what he does. It shouldn't be what. If that's his option, then he doesn't understand it. So the point I was going to make is, Steve Kerr has had problems to keep Draymond Green focused, and Draymond Green is obsessed with winning. Everything you hear about this guy, he just wants to win. He'll do whatever it takes. He's like an old school player that would run through a brick wall for you to try to win a ball game.
Mm-hmm.
He'll also try to hurt you too, because he gets so emotional in it and he never thinks he's committed a foul and he'll end up getting teed up or whatever. But if he can't get through to Draymond Green and keep him under control, then what makes you think that he could control DeMarcus Cousins?
That is very true and very fair. But at the end of the day, I think he won't even need to.
That's also. There's his team police itself. Do they have a tough guy that can do that? Maybe Draymond Green, but I don't know. It's an interesting situation.
I think I actually think Cousins though is going to be fine getting a very few shots each game. I think he's fine getting maybe 8 shots per game. And then
I hope you're right. I do hope you're right, because I never want to see a team this good implode, because that sucks. I'd like to see a team beat them at their best, because that means that the quality of basketball has been met. The Warriors haven't played down to the competition. It means somebody's played up to them.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit pessimistic about that, or skeptical. But what I will say, to answer your question, if DeMarcus Cousins is relatively healthy, let's say he's 85% healthy, because you're never 100% after Achilles.
Exactly.
But if he's 85% healthy and he buys in to the Warriors concept and their way of playing basketball,
let's hear it.
They could easily break that record even if they're not focused. Their own record of 73 games. They could easily.
Oh yeah. But that's not the question I'm asking.
Oh, what's the question? I forgot it. What is it?
How would they rank against the 96 Bulls and 01 Lakers and 86 Celtics?
Okay. 96 Bulls, they'd probably beat them.
Okay.
No, because
well, yeah, it's too bad.
You got to look at the matchups. You got to. I've always been honest with this. I'm not a Jordan worshipper. I respect the guy. I think he's the greatest player of all time, but I don't worship him. So the matchups would be okay. You can get away with like having Tony Kukoc on Zaza Pachulia or JaVale McGee, for example. You're not going to get away with that with DeMarcus Cousins once again, I cannot underline this more, if he buys into the system. And of course you got mismatches like on the other side of the ball, like who's going to guard Michael Jordan. I mean, honestly, you could probably put Kevin Durant on Jordan rather than Klay Thompson on him. At least use that length to try and slow him down a little bit. That would probably be more of an effective situation for them. Yeah. And yes, the Bulls have Scottie Pippen, they have Jordan, they have a lot of players that can counter what they do on the perimeter. But if you have DeMarcus Cousins
down
inside,
low, exactly,
and you've got to double DeMarcus Cousins because otherwise you've got Tony Kukoc on him. And the other situation is you put Luke Longley in. Yes, okay, he's a big guy. He could probably handle him from a strength standpoint.
Pick and rolls.
Or even you put DeMarcus Cousins 15 feet out and have him face up. And he's quick enough to get by Longley. Easily. He would tear up Longley. There's no question about that. I feel like I've just... I'm sacrilegious to my own country.
You're not
I'm sorry, Luke.
Listen, if a team has Curry, Clay, KD, Draymond, and DeMarcus Cousins, it's not sacrilegious. It's just fact.
Oh, no. When I was saying that Luke Longley would be torn to shreds. I'm sorry, Mr. Longley. I'm sorry for everything you've done.
I actually learned when I read that book that Luke Longley was not as bad as people think. He's actually a quality player.
Yeah, but he couldn't move his feet. Karl Malone exposed that.
It's Karl Malone.
Exactly right. He's Karl Malone, and I'm not trying to compare DeMarcus Cousins to Karl Malone, but if Karl Malone was that effective with the help of Scottie Pippen, of Ron Harper, of Michael Jordan, in containing him, then what happens when you can't help?
Yeah,
there's a huge difference between doubling off Shannon Anderson and Brian Russell as opposed to helping off Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. Of course, John Stockton, Jeff Hornacek are good shooters, but they're not of the level of Steph Curry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't leave those guys open. If you leave those guys open, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So I would agree that the Bulls would lose in that situation. The 2001 Lakers, now that I cannot buy. I'll tell you why, because Shaq would get him in foul trouble. Shaq would kill him. Shaq would get everybody into foul trouble.
Yeah.
And Kobe Bryant would do the exact same thing. But that team was not to be messed with.
But the thing about the 2001 Lakers, who do they have outside of Kobe and Shaq? Like, their third highest score was Derek Fisher at 11 points per game.
Look at what he did in the playoffs, though.
Fisher?
Yeah. He was massive in the playoffs.
Uh-huh.
He put up some huge numbers. Put up the numbers up against the Spurs. I think he shot 70% in a 4-game sweep up against the Spurs, who were the number one defensive team, or 70% from three at least. It was an insane shooting situation. But you asked who they had. Okay, they had Robert Horry, who was a bit older. They had Horace Grant, who was a bit older. But they split those minutes quite well, and they were a productive combo at the 4. You also had Rick Fox, who was an incredibly underrated defender. Kobe was a really good defender too. So. Yeah, Allen Iverson put up 48, 49 on them in Game 1 of the finals, but they had enough pieces to... I mean, as great as that performance was, they still had to go to overtime to beat that Lakers team. It took the greatest performance of one of the most iconic players in NBA history to actually win one game in the playoffs against them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you think if you're one of these quality teams, so you think the 01 Lakers... Well, yeah, Shaq is no joke, especially prime Shaq.
Well, who do the Warriors have to guard Shaq? If you say DeMarcus Cousins, I say Shaq would just eat him up and chew him.
You have to put Cousins on him because there's who else are you going to put on him?
Yeah, I don't even know who they've got at the center position now that JaVale McGee's got. Maybe Zaza Pachulia. Good luck with that.
No, that's just a waste of time. Literally.
I mean, you would be simply doing that for fouls, just to foul him.
Yeah.
So at that point, who have you got then? Draymond Green? My goodness, Draymond.
No.
I respect him as a defender, but he's not. He's going to get annihilated. And then you're in a situation where you have to double and triple team, and then Derek Fisher's open, Kobe's open, Rick Fox is open, Robert Horry's open. That's just a recipe for disaster. Now, if you've read the book, I'm not saying you haven't, because obviously you have, but to the listeners, if you've read the book, you'll be saying, well, how did the Lakers then lose to the Bulls in that hypothetical? And the answer is simple. You actually have someone that can guard Shaq without fouling him, and that's Dennis Rodman.
Mm-hmm. Because he's also proven it before. Yeah,
he has in the '96 playoffs, and he's proven that he can guard any position. So if you put Dennis Rodman on the Warriors with the exception and replaced it with DeMarcus Cousins, I think the Warriors would beat the 2001 Lakers.
Interesting. I hope
that answered your question there.
Yeah, because it definitely did. I disagree, though. I do agree to an extent how much damage Shaq would do. I'm a big Shaq fan. But I think that Cousins would... I don't think... how good is Cousins on defense? Because he's such a big body. Like, sometimes...
He's not effective. But he's never been tested. He's never had to use that big body.
Because he's so athletic. Mind you, he's coming off of the injury. Like, I think that you have to double Shaq every now and then, but I don't think you would have to double him each time. And there may be just a few times where Cousins might be able to make Shaq miss, or, of course, he sends Shaq to the free throw line. And then, of course, the Warriors do all their Warriors stuff. That it makes it into a pretty good series. But we'll see. I mean, this is all kind of pointless until we see.
It's all hypothetical, but just we're talking about in the prime Shaq, so 2001 Shaq, because we're talking about the 2001 Lakers.
Yeah.
So I was able to look up some stats here, and the stats don't even really paint the proper picture. But in 2001, Dikembe Mutombo was Defensive Player of the Year, right? He probably wouldn't have gotten it. Theo Ratliff probably would have gotten it, but Theo Ratliff blew out his knee. So Shaq up against a very good Philly defensive team, horrible offensively, very good defensively. 33 points per game, right?
Yeah.
Shooting percentage 58% from the field. Foul shooting 51%, not so good. 16 rebounds, 5 assists, 3.5 blocks per game. That's up against Dikembe Mutombo, who was Defensive Player of the Year, so classified the best defensive player in the league. And who else would you have gone with that in this situation? Maybe Ben Wallace, but Ben Wallace hadn't emerged at that stage either. So I mean,
not yet. No.
No one really questioned whether he was the Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe Tim Duncan, but even still, Tim Duncan wasn't doing the stuff Dikembe was doing.
Yeah, we all know how I feel about Tim Duncan guarding Shaq.
We'll save that for another episode. But the point that I'm making is if Shaq did that to Dikembe Mutombo, what would he do against DeMarcus Cousins?
Yeah, and it's fair to say, no matter how old Mutombo was in 2001, he was still a better defender than Cousins now.
Absolutely, and that we don't know how good Cousins is going to be. If that's even being generous. Now, I will say this: DeMarcus Cousins is a lot bigger than what Dikembe Mutombo was, so maybe that strength would help him. But I have never seen one player match strength, with the exception of Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone. And those two guys were Bulls.
Wait, Karl Malone matched strength with Shaq at times?
Oh, yeah, in the 97 and 98 playoffs. Absolutely. Why do you think the Lakers got killed in those playoffs?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't know.
Karl Malone was a monster. He was an absolute beast, and for once he was able to use that strength. He was the strongest guy in the league for so long until Shaq really came in, and even then I would argue that Malone was stronger than him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
country strong.
We had a few more topics that we never got around to. We'll go with this. We'll go real quick with this stuff because I want to get your answers.
Okay.
Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. Thoughts on that?
Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. I don't know what happened in San Antonio. I don't know if he was injured or if he wasn't or what happened. But the point is, he's gone now. What I think he'll play well for them, mainly because he's on the last year of his contract. He wants that max. And do
you think he'll finish the season there, or do you think they'll move him?
Oh, I think he'll finish. Because you never know with his personality. He might like it there, and he might resign. Like, he likes to keep to himself. And I'm sure, I don't care how quiet you are, you're not going to not like getting $200 million or however much his max is. And I think, the more he plays, the more he shows off his skill set, the higher the likelihood he'll get re-signed. Do you know if the Raptors can sign him to a supermax? Or they can't?
No, they can't.
They can't?
can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so he's still auditioning for a max contract with all the teams. So I think he's going to play tough, and then we'll see what happens.
Now, there is talk, I don't want to turn this into a LeBron podcast, but there is talk that potentially he could go to LA. Also the Clippers, but we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But if he goes to the Lakers, which is a big if, because he said publicly that he doesn't want to go to the Lakers or not publicly, but there's talks from his camp that if he does, he no longer wants to go to LA because LeBron is there. But hypothetically, if he is to go to LA, does his game fit with LeBron's?
Yeah, it has to if they're trying to win. LeBron has to make it work. They both have to because he's too good. He's too good. He was my pick for MVP last year before he got hurt and all this quad stuff happened.
Oh, ahead of Westbrook?
No, wait. Who won it last year?
Oh, Harden got it, but
yeah.
He was your pick heading into the season. I get you.
Yeah.
That's a fair call. I did pick Harden to win the MVP last year just because I felt like he probably should have won it the year before. But I mean, he went up in a once in a million season of Westbrook,
and he had the same season back to back.
Yeah, I know, right?
Then,
I think there was a bit of stat padding this year. I'll give you the
stat padding both years.
No, I can look. He's allowed to do the stat padding the first year because he had no one around him.
This is stat padding like crazy. Have you watched the game? Of course you watched the game. The rebounds are crazy. It gets crazy at some point.
Yeah, when he got, what was it, 30 rebounds in the last 2 games to get it this year, I was like, come on, man. No, that's ridiculous. But the first year, when he averaged a triple-double the first year, and you look at what their record was, I think it was something like 34-8 or something like that when he got a triple-double.
Well, of course, because he's a phenomenal talent. My issue with Westbrook is I wish he put as much effort as he did into rebounding, as he did into becoming more of a pure point guard. In terms of
that's not something you can just learn though. You know this from football. Sometimes you can have the greatest athlete in the world playing quarterback. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to make the right throws.
That's true, but he needs to study up tape, talk to people, get coached. It doesn't make any sense.
He's gotten better. I'll give him that.
A game. Why?
But think about this, and people have accused me of being a defender of Westbrook, and to an extent, that's right. I do. I love the intensity that he plays with. Mm-hmm. But think about this. When he was in college, he was a 2-guard.
Yeah.
When he first got into the league, he was essentially a 2-guard as well. They had Watson playing point guard.
Yeah.
And then they had James Harden, which they brought in the next draft. And when he came on, he had a Manu Ginobili-like role where he would run the offense. So he was a 2-guard then as well. And then he had to develop into a point guard, playing alongside Durant. And then Durant left, so he had to go back to doing everything. And now he has Paul George alongside him, so now he doesn't have to do everything. Now he has to revert back. His game is like a seesaw in terms of what his role has had to be.
Yeah, that's fair. So mind you, I'm not going to fault him because that's true. He's not a point guard. He is a shooting guard. He just happens to not be 6'6". But everything you just said, what does that have to do with him trying to get 10 rebounds each game?
Well, here's the thing, right? When you watch the game, their offense has never been effective, even with Kevin Durant in the half court. And that's what really was the biggest reason that they lost that 3-1 lead to Golden State.
Yeah.
So they want to get into transitions, not just off turnovers, but off missed shots. Now, the best way to do that is if, they can sort of clear out and box out and let Westbrook get the ball, and you don't have to then pass it to him. He's already got the ball getting a full head of steam. That actually helps them.
Yeah, because it's definitely an interesting dynamic on the fast break if the point guard gets it and brings it up, or if the center gets it and passes it to the point guard or to whoever is downfield to make the right read.
Mm-hmm.
But still, though,
sometimes it's too much.
Like I hear you because when he was because before he averaged 10, he was doing 7, and I was like, okay, that's fine. He plays hard, fast break, blah 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 blah. Okay. But I just feel like 10's too much because, to me, you're putting your energy towards something else that is not giving your team the best chance to win, in my opinion. I think the effort he's putting towards him trying to get the rebound, he should be trying to do that to pretty much anything else, whether conserving it to play tougher defense, conserving it to drive to the basket when you're in the half-court set. I mean, you tell me. You know more than I do. But how many points did OKC score from Westbrook getting the rebound himself and then pushing it up, and either takes it to the hole or he passes it to some wide open shooter in the.
Well, it just pushes. It doesn't allow the defense to set up.
Okay.
I can't give you a direct number of it, but it has its advantages. Now, I do agree with you though that you do have to start managing your energy, because come fourth quarter you need to be fresh enough to finish those games out. To his credit though, he's a very effective fourth quarter scorer.
Yeah.
What I want to see him develop, not so much as a point guard. I would love to see him develop into a true point guard, but I would like to see him have the ability to work off the ball a little bit more, because that would make him incredibly versatile.
But
Can you imagine?
But his shooting though is not there to be.
No, you don't have to work off the ball to get shots. With a guy that's as quick as what he is, he would be a beast on the offensive glass, especially if he's being boxed out by smaller point guards.
Yeah.
He would be an absolute force in those situations. And not just that, you can get him in screen and roll situations, especially with Schroeder there now. Think of it like Chris Paul and James Harden, a much lesser version of it, but they could, it would allow them to not be so predictable. Especially when you have a guy like Paul George, have the ball in Paul George's hands a lot more, and having Westbrook screen away.
Interesting.
It's just the potential there for him to develop into more than just a straight up point guard, dynamic, athletic player. You could put him in a variety of situations. Hell, he could be a great post up player because he's that strong.
Being guarded by somebody that's not that tall. So all the
exactly.
Nowadays are never.
All right, man. Yeah. So, did you have any final questions or comments?
Final questions or comments? Where can people find me? You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. My handle is Clutch Joyner. You can also find me on YouTube. My YouTube name is Clutch. I do NBA content with NBA 2K, NBA reactions, and also Madden NFL football. Excellent.
And you're looking to branch out in the next couple of months into not just the 2K and the reaction videos.
Yeah, that's true. I'm looking to branch out, trying to get some things are in the works right now with the NBA. I feel like we're Broadband TV under NBA Playmakers program, so you may see me on their YouTube channel. And also, we'll be doing some stuff with NBA directly. So we'll see. We will see.
Okay, we'll get you on the show as that gets a little bit closer, so you can promote it to the audience.
Nice.
We're assuming that these guys are basketball fans that are listening. Did you have any final questions or comments?
Final question. Yeah. Who's your pick to win the title this year?
You're not going to like it. It's Boston.
Wow.
Just because I think they match up incredibly well with what Golden State. They can take away potentially what Golden State does best. And if Houston was able to do that with an old Chris Paul, with James Harden, imagine what Terry Rozier, what Kyrie Irving, what these defensive war horses that they have, what they'll be able to do with them. Now there's a problem potentially of how do all their pieces fit in.
Yeah,
but I trust Brad Stevens a lot more than I trust Steve Kerr.
Especially if we're making adjustments on the defensive end. I hope you're right. I'm not a Golden State.
Who are you picking? Is it Golden State?
Yeah, I'm picking Golden State, yeah.
That's such a safe pick, man. That should not count. If anyone says they're picking Golden State, that should not count.
I picked Golden State for the third consecutive year. So, yeah.
Do you think if they win, people will start calling them the greatest team of all time?
People are already saying it.
I mean, legitimate people, not the Instagram.
If Cousins plays well. If Cousins plays well.
Yeah, I could buy that. If Cousins plays well and under control and is actually an asset, he doesn't take away from that what they do there. I could get on board with that, because then literally, how do you guard this team?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. So it's going to be exciting, because I do hope Cousins comes back healthy, because I want to see if it's the greatest team of all time. I want to say that I saw them with my own eyes, because I was young when Jordan's Bulls were doing their stuff in '96. So funny, because back then, Jordan was definitely the best player, but it wasn't. You didn't really appreciate, at least me as a 7-year-old, when Jordan won, because Jordan's the best. Yeah, they won the championship. That's what the best player does. So you didn't think how it would be a challenge or a struggle, because the whole mystique of Michael Jordan. Yeah, Michael Jordan, he won 7.
Before you go, let's. I've got a question that just sort of came up.
Yeah.
But I've had these discussions with people before, so I'll get it to you. I'll get it out of you before you leave. Do you think that Golden State's a little bit overhyped based off what they did last year? You know, being down 3-2 before the Chris Paul injury. So they are vulnerable.
Yes.
At least to certain teams. But they're being built up to this juggernaut because a lot of people don't want to accept LeBron's failures. And by saying, oh, he lost to the greatest team of all time, or he lost to a team that's unguardable.
Yeah.
Do you think that's an element to it?
Oh, yes, that's true, 100%. People are trying to call the greatest team of all time when LeBron beat them the first
2016.
time.
Yeah.
Because they knew in their heart of hearts the only reason they probably won is because Draymond got suspended for one game and Curry was 100% healthy and like all that. And you knew most likely if they ran it back, there's a possibility that James could lose. Though I did think when I watched that series that the Cavaliers could win because there was something off about Golden State. There's always something off about their psychological aspect to get the tough bucket. But now they have so much talent with the addition of Kevin Durant, they really don't get to that moment because they just blow people out so much or Chris Paul gets hurt. But yeah, I think that's a part of it. But when you add in somebody as talented as Cousins, he was really putting up Wilt numbers at the beginning of last season. So like,
don't go that far.
He had a 40-20 game.
But you said Wilt numbers. Shaq's had 40-20 games.
Well,
I mean,
wait, he had a 40-20 game and he was also doing like 30-10-10, like getting triple doubles. Like I'm not saying he's not Wilt, but he was putting up. Wilt had 40-20. DeMarcus Cousins had 40-20.
Okay, I'll give you that. But let's never ever have Wilt and DeMarcus Cousins in the same preference.
About Wilt. Oh yeah, and also now I have Wilt now at 5.
Oh yeah, I'm going to hear this. What's your revised top 5?
My revised top 5 is Jordan 1, Kareem 2, 3 and 4. I'm switching. I'm not sure, but as of right now, it's Bron 3, Kobe 4, Wilt 5.
Let me ask you this. I like it, by the way. I'll give you a clap. It's much better than what it was.
Getting better.
But this is something that I'm going to have to explore at some point doing a feature for this.
Okay.
But why is Kareem ahead of Wilt?
Kareem's ahead of Wilt because 6 rings, 6 MVPs, and I give him the longevity.
Okay.
He scored 38,000 points.
No, the longevity's a real thing.
That has to mean something. And also all the defense, because I would love to put Kobe ahead of him. But the guy has the most points ever, and Kobe's just known for scoring. So I'll have it right there. But based off of things I've read, you could easily put Wilt ahead of him. And then the whole list gets all messed up. So I have him there.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. No, Kobe's a little high for my liking, as is LeBron. LeBron's 7th or 8th on my list. Kobe's just behind him, by the way.
Uh-huh.
But I do have Kobe ahead of Shaq, ironically. A lot of people have I know you do. But a lot of people have an issue with that. But the reason I have Wilt ahead of Kareem is I can't discount the fact that Kareem he only won with Oscar and he only won with Magic. And those are two of the best floor leaders and point guards in NBA history.
But you would know that Oscar, I think that was his last year or second to last.
It was his last couple of years, but he still directed that team. I watched there's not a whole lot of footage of that, but I did watch that team, and he was the leader of that team. He was the floor general of that team.
Wait. I actually watched one of those games.
Okay. Which one was it?
Oh, I might have been Game 7 or I don't know, Game 6. Some of the game where...
Oh, the one they won? The championship they won?
Yeah.
Or the one they lost to Boston?
This was when Kareem was on the Bucks, and it was when they won the championship that year with Oscar. Okay. Oscar, you could tell he was an aging player or pretty much an aged player that was good, and now he wasn't as good as he used to be.
Here's what I would say to that, because I watched games with the Bucks, and this is why I formed this opinion. You're right, he was no longer the dominant player that he once was, but he was directing that offense beautifully. And all you have to do is look at how that Bucks team went when they had Oscar Robertson to the year prior when they didn't have Oscar Robertson, and the impact he made. And that's why I'm not saying that Oscar Robertson is the reason they won that title. But I'm saying not Wilt, but Kareem needed him. And then once Oscar Robertson retired, what happened to Kareem? He did nothing. Well, he won MVP awards, but they didn't win any more titles in the 70s.
Until he went to Los Angeles and Magic came.
But he played a couple of years in LA and he didn't do anything. Yeah. And then you look at how many Finals MVPs he got playing alongside Magic. He got one.
But then couldn't I say, wait, he only has 2 Finals? No, he has 3 Finals MVPs.
No, he only has 2. He has one in Milwaukee and he has one in '85.
He has 2 Finals MVPs. He's the same there.
He does.
Are you serious?
There is the longest gap for Finals MVP, 71 to 85. Sorry.
Okay. And
Tim Duncan nearly broke that, by the way. If Tim Duncan got that, how they won in 2014, he would have matched it.
Yeah, well, he didn't deserve it in 2014.
He wasn't that far off. There wasn't a dominant player on that Spurs team. He wasn't that far off it. But had he won it, he would have broken that record.
Dang.
Because he won it in '99, obviously.
Uh-huh. Well, then could I just say the same thing about Wilt? Like, then why does Wilt only have 2 rings? And I'm sure...
Yeah, so obviously he was going up against the Celtics, right? But the Celtics had 8 Hall of Famers. Like, we're talking about the Warriors now, and like, oh, Jesus, what a stacked team. They got 5 Hall of Famers. The Celtics had 8 of them. And once the 76ers started to get talent, then they became real competitive, but they could never get over the hump. I'm not making excuses for him, but what I will say is, he was probably... People think, he came into the league where there was a bunch of, short white guys playing center. That's actually not the case.
Not a center.
You had guys like Nate Thurmond, Bill Russell, Willis Reed, Hall of Famers, man. Wes Unseld. There's so many great players that played that position. It was probably the golden era, more so than the 90s.
100% was at that position.
And he didn't have... But the problem was, the game hadn't evolved. Like, in terms of strategies. The only guy, and this is probably a huge reason as to why they were so successful, the only guy that was really evolving the game was Red Auerbach. Mm-hmm. It wasn't his coach in LA, who wouldn't even put him back in the game in Game 7, which they probably would have won. Yeah. Or, the coach in Philly or San Francisco, I can't remember their names, that's how insignificant they were. And the reality was, if you put... How many titles do you think the Lakers would have won if they had Wilt instead of Kareem, and you have Magic Johnson bringing the ball up? That's a scary proposition, because you remember, keep in mind, that's a Showtime team, so you got an athlete like Wilt.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, I'm not discounting Kareem, but I don't think the Celtics would have won in '84. I think the Lakers probably could have run off 8 titles had they had a prime Wilt as opposed to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, of course, Kareem wasn't in his prime, but the point that I'm making is Wilt probably came in at the worst possible time that he could have. He won 2 rings in spite of his era, rather than because of his era. So, if I'm making my all-time team, and this is what I came down to, why I've got him as number 2 all-time, which people think that's a bit high, but I'm sticking with that. If I'm starting a team, and I get the chance to pick a center, I'm going with Wilt every single time because of what he could do on the basketball court. There were no weaknesses outside of his foul shooting or delivering in big time situations in Game 7. But it's a bit hard when you have 3 guys on you. Mm-hmm. And I'm not giving the LeBron excuse, because LeBron is very rarely triple teamed. Mm-hmm. And you got a swarming defense with no coaching strategies really in place because the game hadn't evolved at that point. So that's why I've got him ahead of it. But look, I've got no issues with Kareem. I've got no issues with Kareem being number 1. If someone tells me Kareem's number 1, let me finish.
To go all crazy.
No, let me finish. If somebody tells me that Kareem's number 1, I have less issue with people telling me that Kareem is number 1 than when they say LeBron is.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I've got no issue with that. Where do you have Shaq?
Oh, I have Shaq at 6.
Oh, okay, all right then, fair enough. Because that should indicate to you how good that 2001 Lakers team were. Yeah. Because you're saying, who do they have outside? Does it even matter? If you got 2 of your top 5 or top 6 players of all time?
Yeah, that's true.
That kind of indicates how good they were. And what, Shaq wasn't even 30, Kobe was 22, 23. Uh-huh. That's a scary ball club, man. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more time, but this time I want you to lie to me and say no. Do you have any more questions? Just kidding. Hey, it's always been a pleasure. follow this man. He knows his basketball. He's a very entertaining dude. I used to watch him on YouTube when I had time. I'll try to do that a little bit more in the coming weeks. But he's not just an entertaining personality on YouTube. As you can tell from this podcast, he knows his stuff. Keep an eye out for him on NBA TV. If he's not on there, send an email to NBA TV and demand that he gets in there.
Thank you.
LaMont, always a pleasure, man.
All right, man. Until next time.
All right, take care.